Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Numi Magnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Moruga man shot while picking Shadow Benny. Commonwealth Cyber Fellows chart course for regional security. Finance Minister blames public servants for $2.6 billion accounting error. And human trafficking bust. 12 women rescued in Chaguanas raid. Now for the details. A Moruga man is recovering after being shot while gathering Shadow Benny. Curtis Morgan of Edward Trace was in a garden at Dennis Trace when he tripped, heard a gunshot and realized he had been hit in the leg. He was taken to the Princestown District Health Facility and later transferred to San Fernando General Hospital. Police are investigating the incident, which comes days after 73-year-old Stevenson Lumi was fatally shot by a trap gun in the area. A roadmap for tackling cyber threats across the Caribbean has been developed by the Commonwealth Caribbean Cyber Fellowship. Representatives from multiple countries met in Port of Spain to discuss strategies against hacking, ransomware, and cyber fraud. The plan includes sharing resources, strengthening cybersecurity policies, and improving regional cooperation. Officials say this initiative will enhance national security and digital resilience across the region. Finance Minister Colum Imbert has denied any wrongdoing in the $2.6 billion understatement in national accounts, shifting the blame to public servants. In a social media post, he insisted there was no missing money and described the discrepancy as an accounting error. His comments follow a Privy Council ruling in favor of Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas in a legal challenge related to the matter. 12 women were rescued and 2 men arrested during a police raid on a suspected human trafficking operation in Chaguanas. Officers initially searched the Edinburgh Gardens property for drugs and weapons, but instead found young women from Venezuela, Trinidad, Guyana, Grenada, and Cuba. The women were handed over to the counter-trafficking unit as investigations continue. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Magnish. Thanks for watching.
Attention everyone, the Office of the Prime Minister Communications has launched a brand new WhatsApp channel designed to keep you informed and connected like never before. Get real-time updates, breaking news, and important information directly from the source. With our WhatsApp channel, you'll always know what's happening when it's happening. Joining is easy. Use your phone camera, scan this QR code, tap follow, and that's it. You're in. Be sure to tap the notification bell to never miss an update. Stay informed, stay empowered. Join the conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.
WESN.
One of the benefits of always telling the truth, always being transparent, always being straightforward, always being as direct as possible and to the point, always trying not to hide anything, whether intentionally or unintentionally, because sometimes we might not necessarily speak things out when we're having a conversation on any given issue, or we're confronting a problem with individuals, whether it's in our lives or work, what have you. We might not get every detail in line, all of our ducks in a row, not necessarily by intentional design, but it could be, just an unintentional mistake. Regardless, if you strive to be as accurate as possible all the time, one of the benefits, and perhaps this might actually be one of the you would think one of the benefits of always being truthful and straightforward is that, to literally be truthful and straightforward. But one of the benefits is that then you don't have to keep track of all the various narratives and spins and angles and different ways you want to frame something in order to be consistent. Because if you're just straightforward all the time and transparent all the time, in order to be consistent, you just have to say the truth. Like I said, when I say things like you just have to say the truth, it implies that the opposite of that is lying. But the opposite of that, yes, it's lying, but that's not the only thing that could happen. It could be that you're careless. It could be that you don't think things through. It could be that you're forgetful. So let's not attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence, and I use incompetence not as an insult, but for the literal meaning of the word, which I would hope we do not automatically assume as an insult. Yes, I know culturally we would, but at the end of the day, as I said before, we all have moments of incompetence. That said, it's interesting where some of the stories today have reached, and we'll go on with one of the big stories coming out of yesterday. But I wanted to touch on a couple of things first, one of them being the Minister of Finance going to social media to try to defend himself for what he claims to be a false narrative from the opposition. He is saying, this is the quote on the post, "The opposition is promoting a false narrative about my involvement in the audit of the public accounts for 2023. There is no missing money," all caps. "The public servants made an," all caps, "accounting error. As minister, I have no role in this matter except to seek to ensure they fix their mistake." What is the problem with this social media post? The problem is all of his actions before now, at least that was in the public sphere, did not highlight any attempt by the minister to ensure that the public servants who made, quote unquote, an accounting error fix their mistake. His actions have been primarily centered upon forcing the audit to be done in a manner that will technically go against the rules of how the audit is supposed to be conducted as defined by the law, regardless of his intentions, motivations, reasonings. His solution was to have an investigative committee looking to the underreporting of accounts. And yet, at no point to the public did he explain this accounting error and how it was, what was being done to rectify the accounting error on the end of said public servants. So to come now and to try to introduce this into the narrative at this point in the game is very ineffective, because we just had a Privy Council ruling that ripped apart the terms of reference and all of the details surrounding that investigative committee. That's basically what they did. Now again, I am not ascribing to what the Minister of Finance's motives are. I am just pointing out what came out of the ruling and the fact that if you want to have effective communication, you can't switch gears, and this is switching gears, right? I guess you will have to be, to some extent, politically naive if you think that you're doing this and you're not switching gears, if you were to do something like this. Because you're introducing elements to the conversation that you didn't bother with before. Yes, to some extent you did try to say, well, it's the public servants, but now the emphasis is on their accounting error that you're trying to fix, as opposed to the Auditor General not doing the audit as you saw fit, and the Attorney General conducting himself in a manner which I would argue is unprofessional given his office. But here's the other part of it, because I actually, and I have consistently pointed to a third part of this that I thought should be the main point, because a lot of people are saying they're missing money, they're missing money, they're missing money. Forget the missing money. That is a one-time thing, right? And forget the public servant's error. We know they're going to have errors, and until the public service is fixed, and for all of you hardworking public servant out there, I'm not speaking about you. And to all of you who think I'm attacking the public service, I'm sorry. But you can't tell me any public service institution is operating in a healthy manner, at least as far as I'm aware, because I've put that out there publicly and I've yet to hear it. Yes, there are people with good intentions in the public service, but whether it's because of underfunding and a whole host of other less benign reasons, things ain't looking so hot on that end. But of course, the minister didn't really go down that road. And to some extent, I don't care about that part of it. I don't care about the amount of money lost now. I care about the fact that there's a situation that potentially is festering in the long term that could have seen more than $2.3 billion disappear, multiple instances throughout who knows how long, how many years, how many administrations, by having what may be, once again, a laissez-faire, fast and loose. The rules and the laws are not laws, they're just merely guidelines. We treat laws in this country as guidelines. And one of the things that makes the situation extremely annoying is how is it that the government is going to tell us that they care about the rule of law in the country, and then something like this happens. At the end of the day, when criminals see this, when young men who are on the cusp of making the decision, do I fall in line because of all the pressure in my community to join a gang, all the pressure, the socioeconomic pressure because I can't get job opportunities, all the pressure from my peers who are showing me all of the ill-begotten gains they have accumulated and tempting me? Why am I going to walk the straight and narrow when nonsense like this happens? And granted, I don't think this is potentially, it could be, but it's not necessarily criminal. But it is, in a sense, kind of flouting law and order from a different angle. It's not too dissimilar to the PH taxi situation, to parking on the Eastern Main Road, and a whole host of other things that comes up every now and then on talking points. So at the end of the day, I don't have an issue. The Minister of Finance may have had a very good explanation for all of this, except everything he's put out in the public sphere has been less than impressive. And I'm not just the only one saying that. The Privy Council said that because they didn't need to hear from the Auditor General's legal team. They just heard from his legal team. A legal team that, need I remind you, I would imagine was to some extent put together on the advice of the Attorney General. So this Mickey Mouse situation that they have found themselves in is an unforced error of their own making. And if they don't like it, I'm sorry. A spade is a spade. Now, meanwhile, another unforced error, just a minor mention. The Public Administration Minister, Alison West, has again said this week that her ministry is looking at the development of a remote work from home policy. We have literally now seen the government talk about a remote work policy, I think for as many years post-COVID as we've had COVID. And the genesis of this whole thing was COVID. How late can you be? If we had California wildfires, we'll probably out the fires after the country burns down, if we use this as an example. What is taking so long? Why is this so hard? For it to take, what, 3 to 4 years? If you can't figure it out in 3 to 4 years, to what extent are you going to figure it out at all? Granted, I actually do think that there are probably very practical reasons why it's not so simple to figure out. But then the issue is, those reasons that would be preventing this from moving forward in any meaningful period of time, to what extent is that a bad sign? To what extent should those reasons not exist and are symptoms of an unhealthy environment, of an unhealthy labor market? A couple other things. Farley Augustine said Tobago's water woes will always be politicized without autonomy. Why? That is essentially the Chief Secretary throwing down the gauntlet, saying, we don't actually care about unity. We don't actually care about being a nation under one flag. We just want autonomy. And at that point, He needs to be careful. That's what the message says to me. Because two sides do not need to fight amongst each other in order for there to not be issues. You could solve this, whatever this is, with regards to water and the politicization of issues before autonomy. If everybody was, in theory, if everybody's working in good faith, then the timing of these things don't matter. Now, are you saying that the central government will always be a certain way? Perhaps. But for you to kind of make an absolute statement like that, you yourself are pushing yourself into a corner. Because now you're saying there is no remedy except autonomy. We ourselves will not act in a way to try to bridge the gap without autonomy. And it is easy to interpret that as a statement in bad faith. Why does it have to be that way? I get it, on a practical level, it might work out that way anyway. But what do I say about the opposition and the government with regards to crime talks? What do I say to the population with regards to doing their part, whether it is with regards to the fight against crime or the civic responsibility as voters within the governance of the country, because they select the government through the election, amongst other things? You have to do your part to participate, and if the other side falls short, then shame on them. And I don't think that the THA could say that we have done everything we can to try to work amicably with the central government of Trinidad and Tobago in order to get the work of the people done. And again, as I said earlier this week, go ask other rural areas of Trinidad how much attention they get. And arguably, in some capacity, Port of Spain at times gets hung out to dry. That's why, essentially, whenever it rains in Port of Spain, it floods. One would think that if Trinidad puts a priority on Trinidad, at the very least, they'll put a priority on solving some of the problems in the capital, where the Red House is. But there's a reason why a not too long ago mayor of Port of Spain had to get private funding for any initiative he wanted to do. He would have loved to have gotten an allocation from the budget, a fraction of the THA. Granted, Tobago is bigger than Port of Spain. But population size, maybe it's a bit comparable. Or at least the working population and potentially living population too. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears to the real topic of the day. Stay tuned, this is Document on WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Well, that's why it's major general.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide, Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Back here and talking about the WESN. We have something of a full house because joining me first we have in studio retired Inspector Ashraf Ali, disaster management expert, and of course he might know a little thing or two about, you know, the topic at hand that we're going to get to. Welcome. Morning, Ali.
Morning, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm just kind of like, well, we'll get to where I'm at. And of course, joining me via Zoom, we have co-host of AM Prime and co-host of Talking Point, the Shah of WSN, Mr. Keaton Shah. Keaton, good morning.
Good morning, the Sean of WESN. It's good to see you. Good morning, Inspector Ali.
Right. Now, gentlemen, we've got an interesting development on the ongoing SSA saga, which is centered around FULs, which is a very curious situation because at least part of it, right? The firearms and who was authorized to have it, and then to what extent was this done? I think there was some implication to say, well, all these things was done under Gary Griffith, but now the current commissioner has been roped into this in a way that it is not completely clear, right? According to you, Inspector Ali, in the sense of what exactly was the potential laws that were or were not broken, and what exactly is the authorizations of the TTPS, what they're supposed to be doing, what they could do, what they're not supposed to be doing, etc., etc. So we've seen the reports. Apparently, the Commissioner of Police was detained in her office by officers. The lead officer is DCP of Intelligence and Investigation, Suzette Martin. This caused a National Security Council meeting to have to summon DCP Junior Benjamin because Erla was not available. Major Best also apparently has been arrested given the latest developments, but you're saying that some of the reports technically are not accurately reporting it correctly. I don't know if you could explain.
Yeah, so, because of the, no, I'm not directly involved in the investigation. If I was, I would not be in here trying to say saying anything about it. But the information and the general information that is coming out of all the media houses and social media platforms is that based on the investigation in the SSA, out of the SSA, this was another part of it. The part is that in connection with two high-powered rifles, sniper rifles, as I say, that was procured by the SSA. Now, let's go back to the Firearm Act. Those weapons are prohibited. The average person cannot own prohibited weapons.
Right.
However, certain agencies under the national security arm have the authority to have prohibited weapons in their possession. In order to get that, you have the relevant documentation to be put in place and the the importation license specific to certain type of weapons. It must be approved, right? And the commissioner would give approval through the, and based on the fact that it's a national security entity that is utilizing it, it would have been given approval by other individuals. Correspondence would have followed because the commissioner not getting up in the morning and say, we're going to sign off on this thing and say, okay, go ahead and import it. No, it is a process, right?
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of information will have to come out again because this is not how it at face value, we are taking it at face value, right? So this is the process. And any firearm that has to be that has to be procured, or even if you have a personal firearm you want to apply for, and you have to do the same, put an application for FUL and all that. But the thing about it is that the SSA is a Ministry of National Security entity, right? The director or a person designated in that organization will be given an FUL to hold firearm, will be given an FUL, just like a security company who's the director to be the person to have firearms under your umbrella, right? There was reports that they went through the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. The Defense Force has the authority to make recommendations and ask for certain type of weapons. If you want to get certain type of weapons of that caliber, who else are you going to ask for? The average person on the ground? Is the persons who are experienced and qualified and competent to deal with these type of weapons, and they would advise what type of weapons, and they would make the relevant correspondence to do same. This is not just what it is right now, no. It's just a lot of speculation about, and I'm just listening to the media, the public.
You're talking about the media reporting and what the public is saying on social media.
Yes, there's a lot of things, and this now, it just adds to the fuel of the trust and the confidence in the organization, and a lot of conspiracies are taking place. So watch me, the conspiracy theorists out here is going to have a field day. But I am saying that the manner in which this thing took place, is not just good for Trinidad and Tobago and the organization as the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service on the whole. The manner in which
What about the SSA?
Well, they were already part of an investigation.
Right.
So I am saying that the investigation was already launched. Right. But when you look into Bill trying to get back trust and confidence, I mean, these things are not good for our country.
Keaton, I don't know if you want to give us maybe your initial impressions, because like you and I, we might not necessarily be aware of the technicalities involved in this, but Retired Inspector Ali, should I just say Ashraf? Ashraf has just said, he's nodding his head, folks, yes, that, look, what we're seeing in the media might not be the be-all and end-all, except it's still potentially a black stain on the reputation of the police service, the Office of the Commissioner, and of course the SSA's ongoing saga is continuing. Your thoughts?
It very much depends on how you view it. I mean, my initial reaction was one of shock. It kind of blew me off completely when I was reading the story that was coming in and the developments that were taking place. But the reason why I say it's dependent on how you view it, I have to agree with Inspector Ali in the sense that we really do not know all that is happening or all that is taking place, as is the nature with a police investigation. And in respect to this SSA investigation, I don't think many people still realize that such was taking place until this development yesterday. They had an understanding that it had started. We didn't know to what extent it had reached. But clearly, there is a lot happening in the background. As it relates to this situation, one of two things. One, as you mentioned, it could be seen as a stain in respect to the current leadership of the Trans-Tobago Police Service, and certainly does not augur well for the Commissioner of Police, Ula Edward Christopher. In fact, I'm wondering this morning, because according to one report, she has been arrested. If she has been arrested, do we have an acting Commissioner of Police that has taken her position? I'm wondering if that is the case, because according to the Police Service Commission regulations, I mean, they have the authority to revoke the appointments of a Commissioner of Police, but they also there's the power that allows for an acting Commissioner of Police. So I'm wondering if that is what is taking place this morning, seeing that she has been arrested. Another report indicates that the TTPS will be approaching the Director of Public Prosecutions for advice in relation to charges to be laid. So it's all a bit confusing. So even if at this point Ula Edward Christopher is not guilty until proven otherwise, it really is quite unfortunate, particularly also seeing that she's coming towards the end of her tenure as a Commissioner of Police, the second year in that particular post, which I believe becomes vacant when this state of emergency ends following the 3 months. The other aspect of it that you can look at is, oh, okay, great, so the TTPS is working, and they're also working on cleaning up themselves, and no individual, regardless of their rank or position, is again immune to the law, or they can always be subject to investigation, even if it's by their own colleagues, because one has to remember that it's the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Suzette Martin, who led the arrest of Ula Edward Christopher yesterday, which in itself, I have question marks about that. But as I said, the two ways to look at it, it is unfortunately a massive stain on the part of Ula Edward Christopher. It's also could be seen as a positive in terms of cleaning up the TTPS. Nobody's immune. And if you want to get deeper into it, which I think at this point is a bit irrelevant compared to the other 2 points, politically as well, quite unfortunate for the current administration because of the entire fiasco involving the merit lists. Of course, that's something that I'm pretty sure people will raise in time to come, but it's just a minor point at this time.
I mean, that, ironically, given the fact that I am one of the people that will not let that meritless situation go, I actually didn't even think about it until now. I guess it's reached the point where I'm like, Ula's situation is what it is, the meritless situation is what it is, but I think you're right. And it's funny how the conspiracy theorists, I think, Ashraf, you're very correct. They could look at, oh, the Prime Minister, he's now starting to kind of talk about police not policing, you know, and pointing out some of the bad things being done by some police, as he put it, as well as I would put it, some police, right? All of a sudden, the always support 100%, don't say nothing bad, that kind of stopped. There's a hint that maybe Ula was not going to be asked back, and then this happens. I think one of the reports basically said that the rifles were confiscated by customs, and that potentially may have triggered this whole brouhaha. Are you aware of that or not? What might have been the cause of this? Because this is kind of removed from the initial SSA situation. So one of the things that's confusing to me is, well, when did Ayla potentially, you know, approve of this if she was involved? Or when did this happen? Because did it take months for these guns to be delivered? I don't know if you...
I'm just like you because I read it. I read that in one of the media reports coming out. Right, a slant of one of the reports because he has several different media reports and each one giving you a different slant. Right, and that was one of the slant in terms of the two weapons was brought in and customs, and then there was an investigation launch. So I don't know how true it is. There was another media report that indicated that this level of investigation was ongoing.
Right.
Started some time ago, and this is just. I'm not talking to the SSA. The investigation involving the
commissioner.
The commissioner was part of it. Name was a person of interest with respect to this, and was going on some time ago. Now it reached a particular stage. So there's a lot of information out there that is coming out. That sometimes you remember there's a saying that there's your truth, there is the public truth, and then there is the truth.
Yeah.
Right? So let's wait to see which is the truth that is coming out. Because right now the public truth right now is any versions. I've followed this since yesterday because I was very interested to see how some of the comments that is coming and you're hearing the comments and persons are making comments of judge, jury, and executioner immediately. That
okay, if I may interject, Inspector Ali, I understand the point that you're making. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I think there's, and I too had some frustration in that point where people immediately labeled individuals as guilty, not fully understanding that an investigation is taking place. And all that is happening here is part of a normal investigation. I think it's the manner in which it was done that had people a bit more surprised. The mere fact that a deputy commissioner of police arrested the commissioner of police, took them to their office, and they were, according to one report, was locked in their office for the majority of the day up until late last night, guarded by police officers, and was being questioned. So I think that in itself caused people started labeling it as guilty as is in the manner in which it is done. However, on a point of note for this entire thing, Inspector Ali, to the best of your knowledge, do we have people in the Defense Force that is trained to use snipers? Do we have snipers in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force? That is one. And two, if that be the case, if we have individuals who are trained in using snipers, why is it that the importation of these two particular sniper rifles for the SSA is being seen as so controversial? They're seeing that as prohibited. If it is prohibited, and I'm asking you now, why is it, if at all, we have people trained to utilize snipers in the Defense Force?
Right, so the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force does in fact have persons trained to use various type of calibers of weapons. So, understand, because they are military, right? Not jumping on stepping aside on the context of national security and say this is a national security question, I can't answer the question. But the fact of the matter, we all know that military personnel are trained with various type of calibers throughout the world, right? And so that might be one of the a weapon that the persons would be trained. There are special units in the military, right? So yes, they would be trained. The question I think what is causing a lot of the controversy right now is that whether the SSA, who is not a full military organization, whether or not they have the requisite authority to have weapons of this caliber? That is a question I think a lot of the public is asking. I do not know the background towards it or the circumstances towards it. I am not even going to speculate.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think I have any court close, and I'm not even going to speculate. But I am simply saying is that this, I believe, is causing the controversial issues and a lot of questions that Keaton is just asking there. If it's prohibited, how come? Once it's under the Ministry of National Security, and under the Ministry of National Security would have applied for it, you could get a prohibited weapon. But if the prohibited weapon is sent to another agency under the Ministry of National Security, authorizations have to be given for certain things.
If it's transferred.
Right.
It can't come into the ecosystem and go to somebody else.
Right, so it just can't go to that individual. It has to come to the authorized body that was...
And strictly remain there.
Right, so the question here, I am saying that based on how this investigation is unfolding and the information that is coming to the fore, and I'm only reading off the articles that and all the media reports, that there are some question marks in the process.
Now, to the best of your ability, and I think this is something that I cannot find a source to clarify this for my, I guess you could say, to my satisfaction, right? But you mentioned something off air. The Major Best is not Major Best retired, is that correct? Is he still acting in his rank as a member of the Defense Force?
Well, I think how, from my knowledge of the Defense Force, you retire with your rank.
Okay. Because I think part of the question is the SSA a civilian agency or not? Now, according to the SSA Act, you could have police officers seconded to the SSA
as well as
public servants.
As well as military.
So I guess, but the thing is, and this is why, to my satisfaction, because I'm not a lawyer, right? So maybe where it's defined will clear it up. But it doesn't explicitly say members of the military. It says public servants and the police, right? Yeah. So I'm like, are military people public servants? Because obviously, if you go specific with police, they're not going to be police, right?
So true.
And this is the thing. Now, according to a quick search, AI says that the SSA is a civilian agency, but you can't necessarily trust that 100%. And the reason why I say that is this all started with, the unauthorized possession of weapons by some members, including those with SRP status in the SSA. So now, we do have to ask, because as you rightfully pointed out, maybe they do have military clearance to have these weapons, and maybe this was completely authorized for whatever specific reason. But the flip side to that, and I guess the thing is, the function of the SSA as an intelligence gathering entity, one of the initial complaints by the government was, well, you're not supposed to have no armed force. So, and then now you can't get more specific than sniper rifles. Sniper rifles are meant to primarily take out a target, right? This is not...
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Sean. You hit the nail on the head. I can't understand how as an intelligence gathering unit, and in the intelligence gathering of national security, why would there be need for such high-powered weaponry? I could understand if members within the SSA, for their own safety and security, would either have a security detail or even have their own,
personal firearm,
personal weapons that they are allowed to carry, conceal and carry. I could understand if that is the case. I can't see why, to this extent, they would need, as an intelligence gathering body, such high-powered weaponry. But not to digress too much from the point that you were making, I have a question. I don't know if, Sean, you're in a position from what you've heard thus far, because I'm getting all sources of information that it's difficult to verify everything. But as we speak this morning, exactly who is leading the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service? Is it the 3 deputy commissioners who are leading the TTPS this morning as we speak during a state of emergency? Or are we going to see an acting commissioner of police? Because, again, it's being stated she has been arrested. What is confusing to me is that charges have not been laid, right? So, again, we have to bear in mind innocent until proven guilty. That is very, very important. But in the midst of all this chaos, exactly who is leading the TTPS as we speak? Is it the 3 deputy commissioner of police, particularly during the state of emergency?
Well, The organization is a strong organization. Administratively, there are persons, and you have three deputy commissioners of police. So in this circumstance, we have 3 deputy commissioners of police that would...
yeah, but who is, because it doesn't always come to pass, but usually you do want to define who is the next in line, so there's a clear chain of command.
So we have 3 deputy commissioners of police who has 3 different portfolios, administratively portfolios and operational portfolios. I would guess that during the course of the day, during the course of the week, we should be able to find out, well, before next week or something like some person somebody in authority would say what decision they will be making in terms of, as Keaton asked, who is the person to put forward to say who's going to lead the organization at this point in time, temporary or otherwise.
Yeah.
In the context, there's a lot of questions about, and even when I was coming in, a lot of questions was about who's going to be the person acting, who's going to take charge of the organization. And the organization I've been in for the past 28 years is a strong organization. The commissioner could be, or the commissioner does not have to be in office at that point in time.
For day to day.
For one day, the organization will continue. Right. It will not crumble. But for the purpose of administration and the way that from a public perspective, we are in a state of emergency, they need to know who is in charge of the organization and leading the organization, as Keaton indicated. So I guess I would leave that to the because I understand there was a National Security Council meeting.
Yeah. Now there's DCP operations, DCP intelligence and investigations, and the third one is
administration and support.
And I also believe that there is going to be a press conference right after talking points at 11 a.m. this morning.
Right.
By the TTPS. So we wait for that as well.
I guess those questions would be answered.
Traditionally, in paramilitary organizations, operations tends to be next after. And usually there is a deputy,
yes,
right? So, but then operations comes third, right? But I'm speaking more from a military perspective internationally. This is a police entity, so who knows? In some police jurisdictions, administration might be better suited, or investigations might be better suited, depending on the needs of the individual agency. But given that we're in a state of emergency, one would think operations would be one of the key things right now.
Well, I would be interested also on the fact that from a perspective of stability for the organization and in this current situation, once that media brief, and let's hope that it is addressed in the media brief.
Because there are functions that just need the commissioner, not so?
Yeah.
And then if it's like a week, it might be okay. But if we're talking there's going to be at least months, and potentially this investigation may or may not be wrapped up within months. Maybe it wraps up by the end of the day. But let's just say it doesn't. Even though her term isn't going to be that long, months without a commissioner might just be impractical. Because of the long-term nature, you do need someone to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I do want to also touch on, well, and here's the thing. I do think that she does need to be replaced. Not that she's guilty, but I don't think she could act while under arrest. And if you look at what happened with the Caribbean Airlines situation, it's not that the pilot and the 2 technicians are suspended, but because of the nature of airline safety, they are pulled from duty.
Ongoing investigation.
And I would think
but that in itself is a huge flaw, because the Minister of Finance, while an investigation is taking place, is in no position to make the comments that he made in Parliament. But that's a whole different story.
No, but
that in itself,
with regards to the pilot not being on active duty, that and the technicians, that does make sense to me. You put safety first. And we need to understand that's not a condemnation or an admission of guilt on their part. That's just the process. And I think for a job at the level of Commissioner of Police, I understand it's not proven guilty, but it is what it is. We're not saying you're guilty.
Yeah, but they might simply wait until her term is up in a couple months' time. You know,
I don't know if it's
you might have
practical.
you might. Again, we're speculating here. But these are very, very important questions. You might have an acting commissioner of police, but her term is up in a couple of months' time anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't think she's going to be substantially replaced. But is some version of suspension or less than suspension, so an acting commissioner, I think is necessary. That question was raised in the media, apparently by a senior police official, and that is starting to encroach on to what extent, I'm not saying that internal police politics caused this, but to what extent on the aftermath or on the tail of it is it going to be hitching on, right, to the wagon?
Now, Major Best was arrested at his home in Arima. There was a warrant as well, according to reports for his arrest. I'm wondering, was there a warrant for Ayla Airwood Christopher as well? Because you know, I'm also wondering if this could have been done differently, whether or not they would have questioned her, called her in and said, listen, we need to speak to you, rather than this taking place in the manner in which it did. There was a warrant for the arrest of Major Best, according to one report. Was there a warrant for the arrest of Ayla with Christopher? And that's something I also think needs to be, you know, clarified.
Also, I do wonder what's the source of all of this information. But I don't know if I didn't read if there was a warrant or not for her arrest. I don't know if you.
No, I'm just reading off the open sources that is coming out there.
I mean, would they need a warrant to arrest the commissioner in her office?
Well, based on what I read from social media, they indicated there was a warrant. I mean, as Keaton indicated, I'm not too sure whether or not a warrant would have been required. But then again, I don't know the context of the investigation and why, or if a warrant would have been required to go that route.
What is the accusations actually?
Yeah, so it doesn't look, from aesthetically, it just does not look good.
Is it what not looking good, the fact that there is an investigation, or how it's being handled, or both?
I think both. The investigation is, it matters not what office that you hold. An investigation could lead anywhere, right? And investigators has to follow the information and investigation to either confer or eliminate wrongdoing, right? It's a process. So the process would have been initiated. As Keaton indicated, during some processes, there are certain office holders, I am saying, that you could treat with a level of professionalism. The mere fact that all of this information came out on social media while an interview is being taken place at police admin.
Like in real time?
Yes. It caused a lot of conspiracy theorists and information sharing all about misinformation as well as, and the aesthetics didn't look good because there was a, no, when you do something good and you do it in a particular manner, persons don't forget everything that you did well and just watch the process. This is something like, this is what Keaton is indicating that
yeah, well,
we could have done it differently.
We have not done very well aesthetically in recent times. It was a similar thing with the state of emergency, where via social media we became informed of it, and you know, we were critical of that as well. So this is something that seems to be the norm now.
So that I'm saying, I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement that social media will run it. Social media will go. I mean, because there's a lot of information going out. And remember, we spoke on this on several occasions, that when you have a critical incident, this is a critical incident. How you manage the information depends on how you treat that, how the incident involves, how you could treat with it.
Yeah, because one of the minor details in one of the reports, I don't think it's in both or all of the daily papers, is that one daily newspaper who has been doing a lot of the reporting on the SSA matter, right, The Guardian, according to them, they were reliably informed, I believe by an anonymous source, that key documents relating to the issuing of these FULs had gone missing from TTPS records. Now, on one hand, you know, it's not like we've been able to get like the full receipt or seed resolution so that everything that they say is correct. But at the same time, more or less everything that they've said has been within the realm of reasonable possibility, especially when we see how these things unfurl. Some of the things that they do say before we officially hear them end up potentially being true or being true outright. So this situation now, I guess the conspiracy theorists are going to probably run with it, but at the very least, could we all agree that, look, there's probably a little bit more than just smoke here. There is probably fire. The question is what the fire is, and will the authorities actually get it right? Because this would, if this is bungled, I think that's a possibility because it wouldn't be the first time a high-profile situation was bungled.
And so true. So that is why, and to add to the fuel of conspiracy is that we are in election year. And that is adding to the fuel of conspiracy. So everything that is being done, I mean...
hold on. I want to add one more, Keaton. I don't know if you saw this, but did you see what the opposition leader, threw into the fire? The big can of kerosene she just chucked on this fire. She said, was the real reason for the SOE to implement a gun amnesty to save other government officials who are also under investigation, which backfired because the AG didn't realize. She used a descriptive that I would not repeat. That you would have need to come to Parliament for a special majority, because the implication is they try to put this in the back door to also say, yeah, we have a gun amnesty, so we could clear officials. Now, I'm not saying she's right. I'm not saying that this hypothesis has any weight, although to some extent I cannot 100% discount it. This is Trinidad we're living in, Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad is not a real place, right? We have to always keep that in the back of our mind. But still, I'm not saying that she's correct. But Keaton, that was one hell of a charcoal brick she just dumped on the fire.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's one of those times where I have to say, in terms of political strategy, kudos to the opposition leader in respect to political strategy. And how often do you hear me saying that? Because there was a lot of controversy surrounding a gun amnesty. It was raised, it was highlighted, it was argued, by the opposition and other members of the public when it came to the state of emergency. So in that sense, kudos, because bearing in mind, I'm not against what's taking place. I'm happy to see an investigation progressing. The timing is again, they're going to be theories about the timing, because the inspector's right. We are in an election year, and that's why I raised the point of as it relates to how this can look in respect to raising that issue of the merit list once more, and the entire controversy that took place there. That again still has not had any sufficient reasoning as to why that happened. But we are in an election year, so the opposition leader strategically was right. And I don't know if it'll happen, but then if this is taking place with the Commissioner of Police, as it relates to the importation of prohibited weapons, which again is, from our understanding, allowed, but there are certain factors or certain criteria that need to be met, certain boxes that need to be checked and ticked, then this is what the investigation will cover. Forgive me if I'm being an idiot in raising this, but I want to know if there's an investigation as well into certain minors being pictured holding high-powered weapons, a current government minister, or whatever came out of that as well. These are things that should all fall into these investigations as it relates to gun and gun activity in Trinidad and Tobago. Putting that aside for the moment, yes, we're waiting the press conference at 11 a.m. this morning. I'm also wanting to know if we would hear from the head of the National Security Council, which is the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, whether or not we would hear from him later on today. Because during a state of emergency, I think there are certain reassurances that need to be given. And even if we don't hear from him as head of the National Security Council, would we hear from the minister in the Ministry of National Security, who is in charge, or with responsibility rather, not in charge of. The Commissioner of Police is in charge of the TPS, but responsible for ensuring that the TTPS is running to its best of ability, and that's Keith Scotland. So these are things that you want to hear from them during these times, because it's, as I said, you described it as an interesting development. I'm saying this is mind-blowing and absolutely a very fragile situation, particularly given where we are as a nation right now.
I think that the first person I expect to hear from would be the presumptive acting Prime Minister, soon to be, who was the one who declared the state of emergency and even answered questions on behalf of the Minister of National Security. which makes me think that the Prime Minister may have been starting his
He's still
retirement
not head of National
earlier.
Security Council.
He
He's
was
still not
starting
Prime
his, yeah, but he wasn't there for the press conference. According to the Minister of Everything, the Prime Minister was not needed.
No. I'm putting that aside.
Prime Minister was not needed. So he's
just
not needed now, is
we
he?
will hear from them, because I think at this point, the public would
Well,
want some source of reassurance. Because again, who is leading the TTPS? Exactly. Who's the one that is really leading the charge at this point?
Let me add more fuel to the conspiracy fire potentially, but also questions that I want to ask. The whole thing with the SSA situation, it was an unauthorized military organization that might threaten the government. And they had this pastor who was an SRP who had high-powered weapons that he took home that he's not authorized to even have, because arguably the implication was the authorization for the SSA to have weapons were for their own security of their facilities. And I wasn't even sure if a determination on the types of weapons was publicly declared, if it was pistols, automatic rifles, submachine guns, what have you. And here comes the pastor having to give back submachine guns in his personal possession and rifles. Now, all of those things, what did we hear? This stuff happened under the time of Commissioner Gary Griffith. He was the one that signed off on this. But then now, I would just like to know, how do you have an SSA investigation starting? And I go back to the timing, where it leads us now to the current commissioner of police, who's only been there for two years or 3 years. At this point, I can't remember. It was reported 2 years. That she signed off on sniper rifles for the SSA and contributed to this problem. And I think it goes back to what you said, and Ashraf, what you said. It's an election year, and this is your girl. This is your girl that you picked. This is a girl that you picked
it's not
more
just
than
that.
once.
I'd like
more
to
than
go
once.
a bit further. I'm trying my best not to get too much into the politics of the matter, but I can't help it when I look at this story. And I try, every time I read something, I try my best to analyze it as deep as possible. Again, we are waiting for further information, but I'm also looking at the individual who arrested Earl Edward Christopher. Yes, they are the Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of investigations and intelligence. I understand that, I recognize that. But said individual is also a bit of a controversial figure, right? And that is DCP Suzette Martin. And if I am not mistaken as well, I know that earlier with Christopher, her contract is due to end in a couple months' time. But Suzette Martin, a controversial figure, didn't she also apply? Hasn't there been a suggestion that she applied for the position of Commissioner of Police as well? So that is something to look at as well. Do not underscore these little points.
Keaton,
they can be of a bigger story and a bigger picture. But this really, boys, is like lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, boy.
First of all, I think for young people, only young people might get this reference, but the Commissioner of Police might become the Defense Against the Dark Arts post in Harry Potter. People ain't lasted long in that post for whatever reason, right? The plot is against them, right? So I'll just say this. They made a big... What do we know about the merit list? The rumors was there was something about the FULs, right? Then we had the SSA, more things on FULs. Yet Gary was never arrested, right? Now all of a sudden, the person that the government picked on multiple occasions, not just once, right? That they are now, I think they try to blame the Police Service Commission on this. She's been at least preliminary arrested. We don't know if charges will stick, if she'll end up having to go to remand, face a magistrate or a master of the court or whatever. And then, on top of that, as you pointed out, the arresting officer, Keaton, is the leading officer in a controversial matter of which, while she was the leading officer that went to Barbados to effectively kidnap Brent Thomas, she could not have done so without authorization because she herself did not have the ability to authorize a carrier complaint to take her there. Meaning, the implication is a higher-up told her to do it.
Right?
A higher-up approved that mission.
I know you might have court crews, but we don't have no bail money. Just remember that. And all I will say is, again, I will summarize our entire conversation from how I started.
Abduction is in line with the Commonwealth legal definition of kidnapping, and the government of Barbados acquiesced that laws were broken in their jurisdiction. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's why I said effective. I didn't say legal. I didn't say, convicted. I didn't say, I said effective. It was practically like a kidnapping.
as I would, and Inspector Ali, I want to thank you because you've brought some clarity, put it that way. But you're in a similar position to us in having questions as well that hopefully will be answered at 11 o'clock this morning. That being said, as I started the conversation, I will conclude. You can look at this from many aspects. One, it's a huge stain in relation to earlier with Christopher, who, let's face it, was not a very popular commissioner of police to begin with, and inspired very little confidence. Right? It could also be seen as this meritless whole country is backfiring all over again, particularly in election year. Or you can look at it as a positive and say, well, at least the investigation is continuing, and at least the TTPS are doing something, even if it means having to go after their own, regardless of rank and file. So you could look at it that way. This whole thing, though, has unfortunately allowed for us to not speak about the Auditor General and the Privy Council. I'm not going to raise that now, but I'm just saying it's amazing how when one major story happens that makes the government look bad, you have something else like this taking place. And that tends to be a trend. But,
yeah,
we'll get into that.
I don't understand.
We'll get to that next week.
How do we use, we might look bad. Okay, let's do something else that makes us look bad to cover up the thing that makes us look bad. I don't understand. By the way, I just like to point out, there is one good thing Ayla did, but I have to now kind of put that with an asterisk. She did decide to not send recruits that she deemed too raw out into the field. But here's an interesting thing with the timing of it. Could it be that she knew that she wasn't going to be asked back and she decided, hey, I know the government wants these new recruits out on the field, but I don't think they're ready, so let's not put them out on the field. Like, I don't know. Or maybe because she knew she was going to be asked back, she knew that she didn't have to play ball. And she said, well, I'm not going to necessarily push through anything on anyone's agenda. I will do what that needs to be done, whether it's popular or not, because that was one of the big things coming out of, 2 budgets ago, to get these recruits, and it's been delayed.
Once you have any sort of investigation involving high-profile individuals, high level in society, you will always have both sides of the coins looking at it from different perspectives.
Right.
Keaton is right. There's 2 perspectives you can look at it. That from a perspective of positivity, yes, the organization is willing to to deal with anybody that they feel would have run afoul of the law or did something wrong. So we're not afraid of. On the opposite side, you have the other conspiracy theorists who train it in and saying that how it happened, there's something else under. You will never really get the true facts, because the general public will never get the true facts of this investigation and all the information leading up to the investigation, right? So we'll have to wait for some information. We may not be satisfied, some persons may not be satisfied with the outcome because they believe certain things will not happen.
Yeah.
And it happened, history has always shown that persons want outcome based on how they view things. Everybody is innocent and proven guilty. There's an ongoing investigation. Unfortunately, it's the office of the commissioner. And anybody who was sitting in the office of the commissioner and acted in a particular manner or did anything like that, once that office has become tarnished or negativity has been placed against them, it doesn't augur well good for the TTPS as a whole, as well as Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I actually think that the conspiracy theories are probably going to be wrong, but I do think it might be somewhere in the middle. The timing of all of this, when she is on her way out, I'm not saying that it was purposefully done to tarnish her, but I could see where, politically speaking, the administration doesn't have a desire to defend her or to some extent take the hits for her, because when they defended her in the past, they're taking some of the hits for her. They're trying to shield her from some of the flack, but now they're like, listen, we don't need to do this for you anymore because you are a sunk cost situation there. We have tried to defend you. Right now, is it done in good faith, or is it reasonable, or is it unreasonable? Those specific details I think that's especially what we're not going to know. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone line. Stay tuned.
No need.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience.
Give us a call at 235-5479
for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movie Town, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
And we're back here and talking about WESN, the Connect Capital. We'll open the phone lines. You can call in and have your say on this situation. All of the theatrics notwithstanding, I do agree with my co-host and my colleague, both Keaton and Ashraf, in the sense of we need to wait and see for more information. Now, could some version of what's being touted online and the more extreme speculations exist? Maybe a lesser version to some extent, kind of slightly going in those directions. But to say that we could say for sure this is some grand conspiracy, we don't know. I actually think to some extent this is, again, don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to incompetence. I won't be surprised, although I can't say this for certain, somebody just bungled up some very important procedures, except for the fact that why does the SSA need sniper rifles? Like, the state already has arms of service to do those functions for it. Why does the intelligence gathering arm that's not supposed to have an operational element beyond security need sniper rifles? So with that said, the phone number's up on your screen. Gentlemen, I guess Carnival is coming up, state of emergency is going on, we're in an election year. Could this be any more of an interesting time for something like this to happen? We do have a caller on the line, San Fernando. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
All right. Now, I must commend the officer there for his elaborate presentation, right? I like his style of explaining things. So that's why I gravitate to talk on this program. Now, I must say this. The commissioner, she is a nice lady. I like she's from South. But you know something? I will explain to you an episode that happened many years ago in a company that I work in. I'm in charge. I do all the work. And they bring this chap over me, and whatever I do, he has to sign it off. He sits in his office. I give it to him to sign. He can't understand one thing that I put, but he is the authorizing signature. So it happened. He gets all the perks, he gets everything. And then one day I decide, you know what? I'm going to put on that delivery note one skyhook, one whatever. And Mr. Man signed it. So I retained a copy of it and I presented it in a staff meeting to get explanation on what is this. That could be a scenario that I'm looking at. I don't know much about the politics of it because if the head of the security team wanted to get rid of her, that could have been done by just not extending the contract. But the thing is that it has some ambitious person who would have extended a little holiday in Barbados, come back smarter, and decide, well, you see me, that is my post. And I could tell you something else. That person cannot do that without the collaboration and support of some person or persons higher up. I'm not saying the person higher up is Inspector Ali, okay, so let me get that right. Right? But one day I hope that he will hold that post and do a damn better job. Thank you.
It's an interesting theory, one that I actually don't agree with because of some of the other details I think kind of undermines that. Do we have another call on the line? Okay, so the reason why I say that is, given his theory, he says, well, I'm giving things for you to sign and eventually I'll set up a Trojan horse, you'll sign it unknowingly and then I could come back and use that against you. Hey, why you signed this for? The problem is Major Bess also was arrested. And one would think if it's guns for the SSA, he would have to have been involved in this kind of like Trojan horse situation, but then he gets arrested as well. So that's the only reason why I don't think that this was an intentional setup in that way. However, we have reached the point now in 2025. I'm not going to say that the ambitions of some people are what are fueling this, right? That could just be a parallel coincidence if those ambitions prove to exist or not. But I will say that unfortunately, given the political climate that we operate in, I don't think the public will be willing to just discount that the possibility doesn't exist. What did the two of you say to that?
I think that what the caller was indicating that there are possibilities. There are certain office holders that has certain level of responsibility and certain things has to pass through certain channels to reach it. I'm saying that there are possibilities. So we can't discount other explanations and say, okay, there is malice or ill intent and you're guilty of something unless the evidence to show otherwise. I am still saying that I am waiting to hear what is the final outcome, whether or not any charges or potential charges will be considered. Nevertheless, it just is a negative, and it for the office of the commissioner and the current commissioner of police, Hula Christopher, that and this situation, with everything that was said about her in terms of her competence as a commissioner of police, this is the worst of all, and this will this will tarnish your reputation even worse, right? You could be. There's a lot of conversation about competence and able to deal with certain things. She may not have been like other commissioners. She did it in a different manner and structured it in that particular way based on her level of experience and how she wants to deal with certain things. That is the authority of a commissioner of police. But once your name has been put in the other area of wrongdoing and your integrity has been placed unquestionable, that is your name, and that is what a lot of persons will always remember or want to remember, that she was arrested. And this is not something I would like for any law enforcement officer or anybody in high office to come out of high office with this type of tarnishing of their names.
Yeah, because believe it or not, I don't necessarily think that, from my perspective, this is the worst thing, right, that could be attributed to. When I say, like, of all the things that she's done or did not done, this is not the thing that I'm going to look at and say, yes, that's the thing about her story that I hate the most, right? Because I do think that there are more people involved in this. I don't think...
Yes, but she's also going to be very much, when her tenure comes to an end, she's also going to be very much remembered for this, I think, more than anything else, apart from the crime rate spiraling out of control. This is just going to be one of the things, if not the one thing, that she would have been very much, remembered for during her tenure as Commissioner of Police. Again, innocent until proven guilty. But I was always taught, growing up, simple but very, very important. Always read something 10 times before you put your signature to it. And always know exactly what it is you are putting your signature to and the implications of having your signature on that.
Yeah, yeah. And not just not in this case, it's not just about reading it and knowing what the words mean, but the implications of, as you said, what are these rifles for? What is the legal ramifications and precedents and authorizations and all these things that go behind this? Which is why I want to know, do you all think that she may be scapegoated both in this situation with the SSA, but then in the wider crime situation? This is low-hanging fruit now, unfortunately. There's very little that can be said to defend her from most of the population, so it's easy to say, well, she's the problem.
Listen, I'd like to follow the advice of Inspector Elliott and say, we can't subscribe to conspiracy theories. I very much agree with that, and I tend to promote that as well. However, in this particular instance, it's very difficult not to ask, one of these individuals, whether it be Major Best or the Commissioner of Police or whomever it may, are they being made the fall guy? Are they being made the fall guy for a much a bigger scenario situation that is taking place? I'm wondering, because that question in itself may never be answered. As it relates to it. We live on such a small island, a twin island republic. We have a small population as compared to other nations across the world, and yet we are shrouded in so much mystery, controversy, and I say corruption. It's amazing. Everybody in Sherrod know everybody, but yet we never get these answers.
We have San Fernando on the line. I don't know if this is a follow-up or a different San Fernando. Good morning, caller, you on the air?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I try not to comment on these type of issues because I let them play themselves out. However, this one this morning is upsetting, and let me tell you why. There are procedures for the importation of prohibited firearms. Isn't that so, ESP?
Yes, it is.
That's right. One of the procedures is that there has to be a before anything can be brought into this country, there has to be a license applied for and given for this importation, right? For that license to be granted, they have a lot of things to be signed off on. It is not illegal for the SSA to apply for a license to bring in these firearms, and it's not illegal for the Commissioner of Police to sign off on it. This is a continuation, in my opinion, of the witch hunt by the political directorate in this country when they went after legal firearm owners in this country. You know my position on that, Sean. When they went after legal firearm owners in this country. This is just a continuation of that. And if you look at the players behind this, and it will be revealed, are the same players who they dog whistle to go after Brent Thomas and these other people. The same players that are doing this right now. And look at the hierarchy. Look at the hierarchy of the what do you call it? The hierarchy of the police service, excluding Ms. Christopher. Look at the DCP list line up there, and you all should begin to understand and take a deep dive and understand what is happening here. That's all I have to say about this. Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. The one thing why I may disagree with you is the fact that the commissioner was also part of that, what I have called in the past maybe an informal or unspoken or unwritten agenda to go seemingly to prioritize the FUL situation over the illegal gun smuggling, because we saw a lot of effort coming out of the commissioner's office speaking about that, and the confiscation of illegal firearms around that time seemingly kind of dried up in a way. You know, we didn't get the kind of, not that to say that other commissioners got, significant thousands and thousands of guns, but it seems as though the illegal gun smuggling, not a lot of effort was being presented to the public on that front at that time. So that's the thing. It's interesting then that she may have been part of what you called that agenda, at least from my perspective, and now she's a victim of it, if we want to say that that is true. I am not necessarily willing to say that that is the be-all and end-all, because I guess you could say again, as much as you might say that the SSA is authorized, I don't know, a specific specialty weapon like sniper rifles, I don't see it. And then I guess it comes to a question, because Ashraf, you brought this up. Technically, the caller is right with regards to at least parts of the process. That's all within the legal authority of the Commissioner of Police, right? There's certain parts of this process that, regardless of what the weapon was, she hasn't broken the law in total capacity.
Well, there's like I was explaining, there is a process when it comes to firearms and prohibited weapons that needs to be imported. The issues at hand and what is causing a lot of the questions is that is the agency that it was intended for authorized to have those type of weapons, and the manner in which the process was followed to go to different avenues to get it to that agency, whether or not there was some sort of conspiracy behind it. I think that is where a lot of the questions and many persons are trying to figure out, right? Me, myself, reading all the articles here is a lot of it.
One of the things when you've spoken about how bad this was so ill, and why I said that I don't necessarily think this is the worst thing, to me, on some level, it's not that this is a big deal where something really bad happened. This is more like it's a big deal because it sets a precedent for worse things to happen, and the implication of what else that could happen after this point, where guns are being brought in outside of authorized, right?
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad for an image of office holder. right? The investigation has to go. The investigation must take the path it has to go. If evidence and information is leading down to somebody and leading to an individual, any office holder, and you have to deal with it from that perspective, you have to follow the investigation. So the investigation has led there. But I'm saying when office holders, that are the office of the commissioner, is brought into investigations of this nature, where there's a lot of controversy with respect, and there's a lot of controversy already with respect to different opinions and views about legal and illegal firearms.
Yes.
Right? And there's a lot of conversation. So now it adds more fuel to that conversation for persons to say, hey, yes, you see what we were saying, look what's happening here.
Well,
so,
but also, notwithstanding the accusations of the linkages with Andy Daniels' murder and potentially the SSA, right, which that hasn't been made totally clear, right? I think it's just been inferred, or there's correlation there, right? Now with that said, a lot of this is, we're concerned about an issue that could be, not that, and then they had the sniper rifles and they assassinate people. We're concerned about what could be, because this might be showing holes in our legislature and procedures, right? Because again, their authorized strength, were they authorized to have these weapons? To some extent, was it appropriate for them to have the weapons, even though legally one could make the argument that at least up to a point they could have had the weapons. If it's not appropriate, then that point might be limited. We do have Shagonas on the line. Last caller for the morning. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Caller, you're on here. Good morning.
Hi, Pleasant. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning. Yeah, my concern really is why, right? And why I'm saying why. SSA is an intelligence agency from my understanding. SSA is not an operational body, meaning SSA, I believe, would summon the services of the TTPS or the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment in order to carry out their operations. SSA is an intelligence agency. The question would be, why do an intelligence agency need high-powered weapons? Why?
Caller, I think that is a question. All of us are wanting to ask him. That's a very good question, and we are, and I think we are trying to figure it out at the same time and waiting for that answer. I think that's the answer this country probably is asking the question too. Would we ever get it? Would we ever get the answer? That's another question.
Caller, anything else?
Hello?
Yeah, you have anything else to add?
No, that is my, because I mean the country does not know.
Yes.
Majority of the population does not know what is the purpose of SSA. All we know is an intelligence agency. What intelligence they do? Political intelligence, criminal intelligence, military intelligence, what?
Thank you, caller. I think that is also a pertinent question. It's not that we need to know everything behind the tea leaves, but to some extent, and I go back to, well, transparency works for you, and a lack of transparency will leave the population to their own devices to speculate and to then have negative reactions.
When you have your premier intelligence agency in your country, subject of an inquiry, subject of an investigation, of that level of high profile, and now it leads to another organization and head of another organization, the public and even the average individual will ask the question, as you call us, say, why? What is really going on? Is there things underlying in here that we don't know about or we'll never know about? What is really going on here? I am just shocked at the same time, like how Keaton said this morning when I heard the report. I didn't even believe.
Yeah, I had to ask you if it was confirmed.
Because I couldn't even confirm when you called, because I am just getting it just like everybody else, and I'm shocked. I'm seeing my social media going wild, and I'm sitting home and watching my phone and say, seriously, what really going on here? And
I think one of the other questions is how did this reach the media? It's just one of those things. I understand the information age that you should expect leaks, but still, The day as it's happening, it got out to the public. And this is the thing. The reason why I say that is, how many things does not get out to the public, but this just conveniently did in real time.
And the irony behind it is that while things are happening within the administrative building, information has already been flowing out of the administrative building and speculative information being put on social media.
Gentlemen, the latest reports I am seeing
there's more,
is that she has been removed from the police admin building. She's been taken to a police station, but that police station is not being made public for security reasons. Only her lawyers and those close or senior to the investigation are aware as to that police. So she's for security reasons, we know she's not in the police admin building. She's in a secret police station. Sorry.
I would just like to point out that it's interesting how police security is given so much more weight than the DPP's office security. That's just a throwback to a topic from before. But more importantly, Keaton, politically speaking, this is an individual that the government seemingly defended with no apologies. They were like, we are behind her, 100%, 100%, 100%. And then in the span of, 3 months, all of a sudden, we didn't just, we're seeing cracks on that, and we're not hearing about no support for Ayla coming from the administration. Again, politically...
Sean, let's just hope that the Commissioner of Police, her prayers are answered when it comes to, coming out of this unscathed. Let's hope her prayers are answered.
No, but is there a way for the administration to kind of separate themselves to the fallout of this? Because I'm having a hard time. I might be willing to accept technical justifications, but I don't know if the population is going to do so.
I think it's going to be very difficult for them to separate it. Again, I go back to the meritless fiasco, but I also want to point out that the police, when we talk about the separation of powers, that does not necessarily exist in Trinidad and Tobago. And I use the word necessarily because you have to be very careful in how you're putting this information to the public. But because of and can I just point out, just very quickly, that wasn't it over the weekend the Prime Minister was critical of how the TTPS was being run?
Last week.
Over the weekend. Yes. Wasn't he critical of the TTPS and how they were being run?
Yeah.
Very interesting, I might add.
Yeah.
So you take a look at the timeline and how all this is happening. Just over the weekend, just I think it was on Saturday, that the Prime Minister was critical of how the TTPS was being run. And of course, it's being run by Ulea with Christopher. Look at how all this has transpired. So, no, you can't separate the politics. That's the unfortunate thing. That's the position that the governments have found themselves in. You cannot separate it. Well, if something similar had happened to Jackie Watsky and the other gentleman, I forgot his name now, when he was Commissioner of Police.
Yes.
Government then couldn't separate themselves from any controversy.
Keaton, I'm impressed that you remembered his deputy, because I always forget the deputy's name. I only remember Gibbs.
Dwayne Gibbs and Jackie Watsky.
Yeah. But so that's just a behind the scenes kind of observation. But with that said, I have one last question before we close the show. Because the assumption is, and let's just go with that assumption to be true, that Ayla was not going to be renewed for another year, right? This is before this. That's what was being speculated. Of course, I have heard that speculation before, so that could be completely wrong. But let's just assume that she ain't going to be commissioner for much longer, right? Whether it's her contract up or this investigation causes her to be removed. How important is the upcoming exercise of the new, this is a new Police Service Commission, to select the new Commissioner of Police during the election year, given all that has happened now within the last 24 hours?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
How important is the exercise of the new Police Service Commission to pick the next Commissioner of Police in this election year?
Does the Police Service Commission pick the Commissioner of Police or appoint the Commissioner of Police, do they?
Sorry, to create the merit list.
In that case, Sean, again, we are aware that the tenure of the current Commissioner of Police is due to come to an end in a couple of months' time. I hope that the exercise has started, in the sense that I'd hate to see that we have an acting Commissioner of Police for another 2-3 years.
Let me rephrase. Can the Police Service Commission help the situation by conducting the exercise in a manner that the public might have a little bit more faith in? Is there any way that they would be able to do it and not just do the business as usual and then everybody will point fingers? You see, it's the same nonsense over and over again.
Listen,
is there
the
any
Police
hope for
Service
that?
Commission has the ultimate power and authority to make those decisions. If they are an independent body, as they should be, the powers and authority that they have as it relates to putting an acting commissioner of police, writing to the president to ask that the appointment of the substantive commissioner of police be revoked, the selection of all that is within the remit and the power of the Police Service Commission. They have that authority. But again, because of the nature of the investigation and because of innocent until proven guilty, if charges are laid, I would hope, I would expect at the very least, the Police Service Commission acts. At this time, I do not expect it. But if charges are laid, they have no choice but to act. As an independent body with that responsibility, they need to do it. They have the power and the authority.
I'll just say this. I don't think this is one of those things that could kind of like the AV drilling situation. We just don't appeal and nothing is said about it again. Or other situations where you just don't hear anything about it again. The Nipon Kuhlman file disappeared and then it took months for us to kind of even get the reports on how it reappeared. And even any timeline makes, to me, very little sense as to how this was allowed to happen given when it was lost, when it was found, and no follow-up given the large gaping window of opportunity to actually deal with this matter properly. So will this go quietly into the night? If it does, and we accept that as the result, I will be very disappointed in this country, and I wouldn't know what to say. I'm not ashamed of TNT and some of the controversies that we've seen, as I said yesterday, but it saddens me. And I hope if this is allowed to just go quietly into the night, I will be extraordinarily upset and saddened by such a result. Because the result doesn't have to be that Erla is convicted of anything, you know. She could be innocent. But we need an explanation as to how things got to this point, regardless of who is innocent or who's guilty. And I don't know if we're going to get it, as Ashraf said. Thanks to the callers for calling in. Thanks to my co-host, Mr. Shah, and to our colleague, Ashraf Ali, for joining us once again on such an interesting topic, I guess you could say.
Don't worry. Carnival is around the corner. We'll wine, we will dine, enjoy ourselves for Carnival, and then election is right after. All this will be
forgotten.
Oh,
Lord. Folks,
I think all this will. I think a lot of stuff is forgotten. We have like what a 3-day news cycle in Trinidad.
Well, we've reached the point.
Keaton,
you made a good point. This is a 1-day news cycle. The stuff with or 1 or 2-day news cycle. The stuff with the Auditor General came out when,
just
Tuesday evening,
and that's a huge
Wednesday
thing.
morning,
and and the Minister of Finance blamed the public servants once more. It's not to say that he's the most senior public servant. Huh? It's not to say he's the most senior. But blame anyway, Sean. Before we get into another topic, and I get a headache over this man's ignorance and stupidity. Today's a good day to have a good day,
folks. Remember your allegiance to the Republic, because at this point we have to question who does. Stay safe out there. It's nice to be nice, even if you do think that there's funny business going on with the people walking next to you on the street. Still be courteous to them. We will see you next week. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST.